Hello everyone, it's Rory from Pratt's Pods. I'm here now with an iPad Air. This iPad Air is in for not charging. I believe it has the classic charging port issue, so the charging port isn't working. It was very loose in the iPad, so I'm going to replace this now, and we should have a fully working iPad Air for our customer. So I'm going to bring you over to my soldering station. Let's get this all set up. Try and get it so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Just gonna swap over my soldering irons. I don't need my tweezers right now. I need my big soldering iron. So this is an iPad Air 1 motherboard. I'm going to start by putting some solder over these pads. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can either do this, put solder on. You can either put solder on here and then slowly take the port off, or you can use hot air. So I like to do it the slower way, to be honest. It's not all about speed, so how I tend to do it usually is solder on here, and then I just hold my soldering iron over as we pull this up. Everyone has their own way of doing these things. Like I say, this is the way we choose to do it. We used to do it with the hot air gun, but this is how we usually do it now. So just to make it quicker for the video, I'm going to use the hot air. So apply hot air here. To melt all this solder. Now I can see all that solder melting nicely. be nice and gentle, not to pull up any pads. There you go. So that's one charging port removed. I'm just going to go over this with my soldering iron. Looks like we've left a bit of port behind. Oh. It looks like we have left a fair bit behind of the port here, which probably confirms my initial thoughts that the port is faulty. There you go. Just make sure everything's nice and clean here. We have one pad there which isn't quite pulled but isn't quite perfect. And there you have it. Now I know from experience that one that was slightly damaged is going to be fine, because it's part of a large line. There's about 6 or 7 pads that all do the same thing. Give that a good clean. There we go. I've got muck left behind there. Clean that stuff off. Sorry, you're not getting a very good view of that. There's a load of muck left behind which is used to glue the side of the port down to the board. Scrape that stuff away. And there's some more here, so we'll scrape that away. There we go. Good. Go. Few hairs there which I need to get rid of, I was just trying to do. And there's that one trace. Couple slightly pulled actually, that's a bit of a shocker. Right, so now I need to put some solder on these pads to make sure they're ready to attach to the new charging port. and then we're going to fit the new charging port on. So, soldering iron with some solder. Make sure there's, got to make this is probably the hardest bit when you're getting into this sort of stuff. Make sure you've got just the right amount of solder on these pads. Very easy to put too much on. If you do, you'll end up getting bridging when you fit the new port. If you put too little, it won't make a very good connection. You've got to get it just right. That looks good to me. So in just a second I'm going to come with the new port. These pads look a tiny bit loose. They are not a problem though. So here we have one new port. We've just got to line that up now. So, excuse me, my hands will probably be in your way while I do this. So, that looks very well in line to me. I always forget to have my soldering iron at the ready at that part. So, I'm going to line it up again. Line up at one side. There you go. So now we go along and we're just going to solder every single contact on here, just very lightly to start with. Then we go back over and make sure they're all properly bonded after. Like I say, first go is just to make sure that they are stuck down. Doesn't matter how good or bad they're stuck down. And I'll always go over a second time to make sure it's on there properly. So now they're all attached, I'm going to go around and make sure they're properly soldered, staying on them a little bit longer and putting a little bit of pressure to make sure that they are actually connected well. A lot of people will use a tiny soldering iron for this. I find it much easier with a big one, to be honest. It's all down to personal preference. As long as you do the job right, it doesn't really matter what you're using to do it. And there you have it. I don't know if my hands are in the way pretty much that whole time. Very likely. Say I am desperate to get a new microscope with a camera, but at the same time I've got at the moment more important things to spend my money on. Give that a clean. Now we'll go and plug that in and check that it's charging on the iPad battery. Get rid of all that nasty old flux. I'll give it a proper clean after I've tested it. So now we're going to bring this over here. Just going to connect it in really quickly. I'm not going to plug everything in. There's my screen for this. So here we go. Bam, bam, bam. Now, if I plug in my cable, make sure the battery's connected, I should get charging sign. Should get a charging sign. Nothing. So that's not so good. Just check that it is set there properly. There's something on the bottom side of it. There you go. That's probably stopping it from sitting properly. So those magnets out. Make sure it's in position. And no charging. So maybe that one pad that pulled was an important pad. I'm going to have to go and have a quick look at that, check schematics and check that that pad was actually joined to the other ones. If not, I will run a quick jumper and we will be back up and running. So I'm going to leave the video now and I will be back in a moment. Right, so now I'm back with this iPad Air 1, so yeah, a little bit of a drama. So I repaired those tracks that were damaged, and there was actually 2, and that made no difference at all. So I went back to the drawing board, had a little look to see what was going on. We were getting all the voltage in. There you go, you can see the battery charging now. We were getting voltage in to the iPad, but we weren't getting anything through TriStar. So this was unfortunately one of those cases where I believe both needed replacing. The charging port was a bit loose. That doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. So yeah, I might have just replaced that when I didn't need to. Unfortunately, we hate doing extra work, but every now and again these things happen. Obviously, we're an honest lot here at Pratt's Pods, so of course customers are only going to get charged for the TriStar replacement. I don't think it's fair for me to charge for charging port and TriStar when I just sort of jump straight to charging port. Yeah, that's not really fair. So you can see it's charging now. I'm going to let that charge. It's charging up at 1.96 amps, which is pretty much perfect. So yeah, so I'm more than happy with that. I'm going to let that charge, and then I'm going to get it put back in one piece for the customer once it's charged and fully tested. So, it's Rory Pratt from Pratt's Pods and microsolderingrepairs.co.uk. Once again, we have another fixed iPad. Unfortunately, like I said, this one we did have to do twice as much work on, but because we're honest here at Pratt's Pods, I'm not going to charge the customer for 2 jobs. I'm going to charge them for 1, because obviously I should have tested it properly first. If I hadn't just sort of said I think that's the charging port and gone straight for it, then I would have saved a bit of time, and obviously I wouldn't have wasted a bit of time. So so yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You can't win them all, but we have won this one. It's charging up nicely now. Once it turns on, we're going to test it out properly, give the customer a call and let them know it's all sorted. So if you need any help with any micro soldering repairs, any board level work on phones, tablets or computers, predominantly MacBooks, please feel free to get in touch on one of our websites. Thank you.